Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Boss Rush Network. I am Corey Dearigan. With me is my editor-in-chief, the man, David Lasby. David, we have a special guest here today. Zelda universe has been a pretty big staple in the Zelda community for a long time. And we have the owner of Zelda universe, Jess Rappaport, here.
Hi there.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
Great to be here.
Happy to have you here.
Yeah, this is our second time interacting, but for people who maybe missed that episode of the podcast, who are you? Why are you important?
Yeah, so I am the owner of Zelda Universe, as you said. I'm also the founder of Zelda Wiki, and I've been in the Zelda community for over 20 years now. Actually, this is my 20th anniversary working on Zelda Universe.
That's crazy.
So this year.
Time goes fast.
It's incredible. So much of my life, more than half my life, has been spent, on Zelda Universe.
That's so crazy. Like, how did you even get started with that?
Honestly, I joined as a member, actually, and then I kind of eventually rose through the ranks, and then ultimately ended up acquiring the community. From actually some really nasty website traders, but that's a story for another time. It passed hands several times before it ended up back with the community. But yeah, I was writing a lot of walkthroughs and guides for the site, and then I started writing news, and then I've always made content for Zelda Universe, and I think that's really where all my activity into it goes, is making the actual stuff. Now I work on Zelda maps.
Right.
Mostly is my big project on Zelda Universe right now, where you can get full maps for Tears of the Kingdom and Breath
All
of
the
the
Korok
Wild.
seeds?
Every Korok seed.
Great.
Someone didn't know that you could find the Korok seeds there, but that's actually kind of the whole point, is to get the Korok seeds.
Yeah. Man, I can't
There's
tell
too
you.
many of them.
I found them all in Breath of the Wild, and I looked at it in Tears of the Kingdom. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this again. That was a struggle, but.
I did not even attempt to do them all in Breath of the Wild. And in Tears of the Kingdom, I think I stood with everyone else where, dump them into the depths.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crucify them. We don't need these in
Launch
the game.
them on rockets.
Awesome. Launch them on rockets into space.
Yeah.
The Korok space program, I was a proud member.
Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be a great spin-off, like Kerbal Space Program, but with Korok? Don't get me started on that. So, you're doing a panel here on 2D versus 3D Zelda games.
Yes, we are doing a panel in just a few hours.
Yeah, so it may be live by the time this goes up, but so you and I have kind of said we're on the 3D side of things. David, however...
I'm big on 3D. To me, 3D is all about accessibility. The 3D games, and maybe it seems almost silly to say I like the games because they're easier, but the 2D Zelda games, they're too hard for me. I'm not a good gamer, and they don't do a great job to me of explaining everywhere you're supposed to go. They don't have great conveyance, I think. So I think that for me has always made it hard for me to go back and play them. They're lacking a lot of the affordances that you get in a modern 3D Zelda, flagship Zelda game. On the flip side, you've got modern remakes like Link's Awakening that add a lot of affordances. And you might think that my opinion would change and that I'd go back and play the 2D games if they fulfill that requirement. But no, I still don't like them.
Link's Awakening, the remake of Link's Awakening feels like it has the what do you want to call it, of the 3D games. It has the quality of life changes in the aspect that, I can kind of see behind that tree. It's not the top-down kind of this was my issue with A Link Between Worlds 2. Not that it's a bad game, I love it, but
We can be wrong about things. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm wrong about a lot of things. But yeah, there's something about exploring the full world, especially Twilight Princess is my favorite Zelda. And so just exploring that world and finding when you go and find the mirror and the end of that game, I guess no spoilers in case it comes out on Switch sometime soon.
I think is it cool to spoil Twilight Princess? The
Probably.
Game is how old?
I think
I
the
know.
game
game
is 17.
No, we're gonna
18
get it
years
for the
old.
Switch. Just wait.
When
Like,
yeah,
that game is 18 years old.
I mean, people were yelling about spoiling The Last of Us when the remaster came out, so
But that game hadn't been out for that long.
yeah.
I guess it still was a couple. How many years?
It's 10 years, 11 years,
that long?
2013, yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So, but yeah, I guess, spoilers, I guess, for Twilight Princess, when the mirror shatters at the end, it's like soul-crushing almost. It's like, oh.
Yeah, that's one of my big sads in gaming.
Yeah,
Big sad moment.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, and we're not going to have a whole debate here, but just
We could.
for the sake of 2D Zelda, at this point, I
Have to
almost
run in to defend it.
yeah. I mean, somebody's got to speak the truth around here, but no, but I almost at this point kind of look at it as its own unique art form. I mean, really, you make the accessibility argument, and it's hard to argue with that, but in the way that they're sort of odd and quirky and are not always as inviting visually, it's almost like a particular taste in art, I feel like at this point. And so I kind of appreciate him for that. It feels very different than 3D Zelda, but like my old Zelda dungeon boss, Andy Spiteri, used to say, there's no such thing as a bad Zelda. So, I can't really argue too much against 3D. I mean, they're all fantastic.
Yeah, I think like there's nothing I think wrong with the 2D Zeldas really. It's that they're tied to a lot of nostalgia for just an era of it. It would actually be really cool to see them. I mean, they've already done A Link Between Worlds. I guess that is their answer to that.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I really think about it, is their answer to what would a modern 2D Zelda game look like is A Link Between Worlds, which itself is over 10 years old now.
I think we're going to get one soon. Whatever, on the next Nintendo console, I feel like we're going to get a 2D.
Did you ever play Tunic at all?
I love Tunic.
Okay,
so
so
that
that, I
actually
mean,
is.
yeah.
So that is 2D in a sense. You're right. And Tunic is one of my favorite games.
It's
I
fantastic.
love
right?
Tunic. So yeah, Tunic is what I would more like
a
to see.
roadmap
Which is
for-
really funny because Tunic has no accessibility.
It's hard. Yeah, I mean,
Like
there's,
it's
yeah.
and it's really difficult. But something about it is, I think, more accessible.
It's beautiful. I mean,
Like it's beautiful and it's fast. Like when you die, it's very quick to get right back into it. There's just a lot more motivating me, I think, playing Tunic. The world was a lot more mysterious, and I was very invested in figuring out what was going on in it. It really grabbed me a lot more than like A Link to the Past. I'm gonna really ruffle a lot of feathers here. Like A Link to the
Careful, it's my
Past,
favorite game,
just
so.
never really grabbed me.
No, I get that, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also wonder if it depends on where you started too, right? Because like the first Zelda I owned was Link's Awakening for Game Boy, but my first real Zelda experience was Ocarina, and it's so much harder to go back, especially because like I never had a Super Nintendo. I had a Genesis, sad face, but
Yep.
and like it was just really hard for me to go backwards because I'm one of those people who's kind of fascinated with moving stuff forward, and to me 3D, better graphics kind of thing is still stuck in my head as like that's where we're moving forward, right? But then you have different art styles and everything that play into it too now, and so you just kind of have to take it how it is, but still stuck there.
Yeah, and shoot, lost my train of thought. We're gonna have to edit that out.
That's fine.
It's
I'll
okay.
edit it.
Can I jump in too? I was curious about what your favorite Zelda game is.
Oh, absolutely. My favorite Zelda game. This is where my train of thought was going. Is where I started. So I do agree that it is largely where you started. And I mean, like you can look at like the Zelda universe community, and you can see that people they like the style of their first Zelda game.
Yeah.
Or at least the first one that they finished. Like for me, my first Zelda game was Link's Awakening on Game Boy. But the first Zelda game I finished was The Wind Waker. And I didn't join Zelda Universe until after I beat The Wind Waker, and I just wanted more from it.
Yeah.
It's a good
So
one.
I had to come to Zelda Universe to get more out of The Wind Waker. But I never cared about like Link's Awakening in that way.
Yeah, that's Wind Waker is always the one that I point to, and that's where like my mind kind of switched of like, okay, maybe graphics don't matter all the time, because that Space World demo that year was the Ocarina GameCube demo where Link was fighting Ganon. It was super cool, and then they gave us Wind Waker as the next game, and everybody was like,
A lot of
cartoons.
people don't know this, I think, now, because that's entered the realm of Zelda community lore, where people hated the Wind Waker
Yeah.
when it came out. When I joined Zelda Universe, this was 2004, so Wind Waker was like a peak hatred season for Wind Waker, where everyone was saying that I liked Zelda, like with a CELDA. But like, I'd have to explain, like, no, guys, actually it takes a lot more processing power to do the cell shaded effect. It's actually a much more advanced graphical effect. Requires a more powerful GPU. That's better graphics. Like,
Yeah.
what else do you want? That's the best graphics that they. Like, it really is. It really is harder to do the cell shaded effect.
And to this day, probably our most expressive Link.
It's the best
Yeah.
style. Like, obviously it's aged beautifully and nobody feels that way about it now. Well, maybe some
Right.
people still do. But for me, that is like the best design Zelda's ever had. Like, I think even over Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which I think look kind of like homogenized a bit, like just not as overly stylized as the Wind Waker, but I liked the over stylization because it gave it personality. And I do think that like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they have personality for sure, definitely. I won't say that they don't.
Yeah. I agree with, in a sense, that like obviously Link and Zelda are the humanized characters feel less fantastical, which is kind of what you get with, Ocarina through, I guess, Skyward Sword to an extent. So what is your favorite? So you said what? What's your favorite?
Wind Waker.
Waker's your
Wind Waker's
favorite?
my favorite.
So what is your favorite Zelda story? 'Cause those can be different things.
Favorite Zelda story, and I've kind of gone back and forth on this. Probably between Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess. I think it's currently landing on Twilight Princess. It used to be Skyward Sword until I realized actually how basic the story is. What I like about Skyward Sword is how literally animated they made nice cutscenes that tell the story really well, and some of the scenes are really cool, but the actual good story that happens in that game is not the one you get to play. It's the one that plays in the credits when you see what Zelda was up to, and you're like, oh, I want to play that game.
Yeah.
Man, you're ruffling a lot of feathers today.
Like, so for that story, for the Zelda story that we don't ever get to experience for ourselves, that I say is the best Zelda story. But for the ones we get to play, probably Twilight Princess.
Great.
How do you feel about Z-Link or Zelink, depending on
I
how
mean,
you
I guess it's confirmed in Tears of the Kingdom, right? They have a house together.
right?
Wait, what's going on? What
They
happened?
have a house. They have a house together. It's official.
Yeah, like pairing of relationship with Link
Zelda,
and Zelda.
Zelda Link.
Okay.
Z-Link.
Zelda.
I thought this was some sort of like
Is it pronounced?
secret
Is it
character
pronounced
that
Zelink or is it
exists.
pronounced Zelink? Because Zelda Link.
Yeah.
I don't know if
depends
I
on who
like
you talk
either.
to.
It's gotta be Zelink.
Yeah.
I'd rather hear Lelda.
Lelda. Lalda.
Oh man.
I mean, I think it doesn't really matter for the games, and I've never really participated in like the character shipping stuff, because like for me, that's just not what brings me enjoyment out of the games. I
Sure.
guess like I just don't really ever ship characters. For me, it's more about how are they integrated into the story. Link and Zelda's kind of budding romance had a plot implication in Skyward Sword that made you emotionally invested in doing whatever Link wanted to do.
Right.
It was also, in a sense, I guess, a game mechanic. So that was like an interesting take on it, I thought, on their relationship. And same in what game does this really, really well is Spirit Tracks. No one likes Spirit
I
Tracks.
feel the
but
same way,
that
yeah.
is my other favorite portrayal of Zelda, where she's an actual character and is along for the ride,
You
the
can
literal
play,
ride, and
but
you can
you
play
can play
as
at times,
Zelda.
yeah.
Playable Phantom Zelda. And I think Spirit Tracks is so underrated because they messed up so bad with Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah.
And they had to do a massive course correction. I assume Phantom Hourglass, for people who are watching this who don't know, Phantom Hourglass is just a very strange Zelda game. It's lacking a lot of the polish that you expect out of what I would consider a mainline Zelda. It is a mainline Zelda game, just mainline handheld Zelda. it had like just only a few music tracks. It had this really repetitive central dungeon mechanic that was frustrating to play.
Temple of the Ocean King.
Temple of the Ocean King. That's the only Zelda game actually that I like started and I wasn't able to. I did eventually finish it. I
was
did,
a slog.
but I had a real hard time. And I think a lot of people, they don't like Spirit Tracks like just automatically for that reason.
The overworld's a little bit as an outlier in the series too. Having to go everywhere by train and not true free roaming, I think it makes it a little different. But I agree with you that it's a unique game. And when people sort of complain that you couldn't, why would anybody want a playable Zelda in Tears of the Kingdom? They never do that. It's like, well, no, they did give us a playable Zelda.
Yeah.
Like,
You didn't play Spirit Tracks, you said it was
Tears of the
bad.
Kingdom also suffers from Skyward Sword story syndrome, where I really wanted to go into the past and play as Zelda in the past, and learn about the imprisoning war and all the cool
Right,
stuff
yeah.
that was happening. But we never get to see the real war. We never get to see anything
Yeah.
going on.
I almost thought Age of Calamity was going to play around.
yes, I was literally just at that. That is my dream scenario, that they give us a new Hyrule Warriors, The Imprisoning War, because Age of Calamity is in my top 5 favorite Zeldas. So I would
actually
love
had
it.
never played Age of Calamity. I played
it's
Hyrule Warriors,
fantastic.
and the Musou games are not my thing. But
Which is fair. I mean, they're not for everybody.
yeah, so I actually feel like I'm missing out now on like canon story.
Yes.
Not playing Age of Calamity.
It's the music is fantastic.
Is
Like,
it by the Zelda? Is it by like Koji Kondo?
So I actually don't know about the composer for that game.
I think he was involved, but I think the composer was from Tecmo Koei, who developed it, and they kind of remixed the already available music because because Fire Emblem Warriors does this too, where like they take the songs that you know from the other
But they make
games
their own
and
versions.
they make their own versions. They hit harder. They have that like sweet guitar riff that like is kind of annoying but also kind of cool. Like it's the music is cool. I'm talking more about Hyrule Warriors proper than Age of Calamity.
Age of Calamity is more like orchestral,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's that's a soundtrack that I would just listen to over and over. But the thing I loved about that game is, unlike the definitive edition Hyrule Warriors, where Nintendo clearly said that's not canon, they worked directly with the developers for Age of Calamity to give us something that okay, maybe alternate timeline, but definitely
Yeah, I heard it's not really canon. I had to explain this at the last year at PAX East. I had to we did the timeline panel.
Yeah. I
have to
mean, I would
explain.
argue, like it's an alternate timeline, but Nintendo, they didn't come out and say it's
Zelda-
not canon like they did the other ones. So.
Every Zelda's an alternate timeline.
Well, right, and that's why I think that doesn't.
It
negate
should
from
be.
being
It
a
should be
timeline.
that.
Yeah.
But this isn't a timeline discussion.
No.
Yeah.
No. All right. I know we are running out of time with you. The last question I want to ask you is, what do you want from the next Zelda game, since they're moving away from this
Oh my
iteration,
gosh.
incarnation?
I do really want a real Zelda story. I don't. If you can't tell just from my opinions about the stories and how hard it is for me to pick what the best Zelda story is, I think that's the thing that they've never been great at. Is that they create this wonderful world, but then it's not really filled with. It's not filled with stuff to find out. It's not, and you're not doing a big story with like actual plot, things that happen, characters to meet. It's really just like Link beat the end objective, and you just do that, and nothing else really happens in between that's truly notable. Like no one grows throughout the course of these games. Like there aren't like Groose is probably the best example of a character I can think that like matches what I would expect from every major character in a single Zelda game. Like should be like Groose, but like so it should be a whole cast, not just the one, not just the one character. That's what I want from the next Zelda, is a real story, like a meaty story, and I'm willing, like I want it to be linear if that's what makes it a better story. I don't really need it to be open world, and the games are honestly too big. I think they can be smaller.
Which is a shame that the last two iterations of Zelda have sold what, over almost 50 million copies, right?
Yeah.
So that's like
Yeah.
it's going to be hard
Yeah,
for
I
Nintendo
mean,
to
it's definitely
change.
gonna be
Yeah.
the same format. But I think that the story stuff, there's potential for it to be fixable. I don't know the exact solution. They sort of toyed around with it in Tears of the Kingdom, where each section had its own linear story. I think maybe the next step for them to keep the open world format but still have a better like story is to have the characters in the world actually react to the actions you take.
Yes.
Like, you might figure out by viewing all the memories that Zelda isn't Zelda.
Right.
And you can't tell anyone that. It doesn't advance the story at all because the story doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, like, if there's going to be like discoverable story elements or there's going to be things that happen in the world, that should affect how other characters talk to you. And then you can move that story along with them. It just needs to be more like reality in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought Tears of the King, it started out really strong, and then it just kind of faded again, in my opinion. I actually think the memories do a better job of telling the story in Breath of the Wild than in Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh,
in a
hard
lot of
agree.
ways.
Because in Breath of the Wild, it doesn't really matter what order you get them in. There's no spoilers in
Yeah.
that story because it's already happened. You already know the ending. Like, the ending is Hyrule that you're exploring now. It's been destroyed, you
Right.
know, and literally nothing interesting happens in any of those memories. Like, I actually don't even remember like any of them. I think there was a frog at one point.
One
there
of
was
them, yes.
there was a meme.
The dog, too, when Zelda
Yeah.
protects the dog and then Link protects Zelda.
I wish we had a longer.
But like they're just so boring. They're so nothing.
Tears of the Kingdom is still in my top 5. If we had more time, I
Yes.
have a lot of thoughts on that. But
Yeah,
save it
well,
for another day.
for my spicy thoughts on
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom, come to the Tears of the Kingdom Ultra panel tomorrow.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah, definitely do that. Jess,
I was just gonna probably what you're gonna ask, just like where people can find you,
Yeah.
and also what's your
Yes.
favorite way to like interact with
Yeah.
content consumers.
Yeah, so you can find me on most platforms except Twitch. So most platforms I'm at Golden Chaos. On Twitch, I'm Jess Rappaport. Twitch is actually a really great way to interact with me because I stream 3 times a week. So definitely come and check out my streams. I do a lot of stuff about like trans positivity and activism as well because I'm a very proud trans woman. So you can expect like fun trans LGBT friendly streams, like
Awesome.
cozy games. I'm actually going to be playing Zelda games pretty soon because of what we were talking about earlier, where it's hard to go back and finish
Yeah.
those games. I've never finished Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, A Link to the Past, really any of these, because it's hard for me to get interested in them. But my pledge this year, and I'm starting this now, is that I'm going to play through all the Zelda games that I haven't finished.
Awesome.
I'm going to finally earn my owner of Zelda Universe title.
Love it.
yeah.
So yeah, come check me out on Twitch, hit me up on Twitter, and thank you guys for having me here. It's been
Yeah.
a real pleasure.
Thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit. Good luck at your panel. You can follow us at Boss Rush Network on all social media platforms. Check out bossrush.net. Subscribe to YouTube, and we'll see you on the next interview.